Training camp isn't quite over officially, but at least for fans, they closed out their final practice with fans chilling on the berm. What went down at the VMAC on Tuesday, and what do we hear from the coordinator speaking afterward? We're going to tie all that together in a jam-packed Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, whether you're down in Sacramento, California, or listening in from Austin, Texas. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. The Seahawks have wrapped up their open practices for fans. That doesn't mean training camp is over quite yet. There's still a little bit of work left to be done on the practice field, but fans on the berm for the last time today got to see a pretty intense and pretty hot practice today at the VMAC. We'll be diving into some takeaways with some sprinkles of commentary from the coordinators who spoke today after practice. And then I chatted with Tyreke Smith, the resurgent fourth-year defensive end out of Ohio State. Second stint with the Seahawks, having a really strong camp and preseason thus far. Caught up with him. We'll have that interview coming your way at the end of the show as well. Jam-packed episode coming your way, so let's get to it. Now for your lead story here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. We've now reached the stage of training camp, Rob, where fans will no longer be on the berm. They'll no longer be in the stands. There's still plenty of work left to do, though. And fans for the final open practice got quite a treat today. A lot of physicality, a lot of intensity, and plenty of sunburns probably on the berm as well. 90-plus degrees out there at the VMAC, but nonetheless, the heat did not tone down the intensity at all in a fully padded practice. And you have to start the conversation today with some unsung players, some undrafted rookies, because I thought the undrafted defensive lineman today might have been the most impressive part of the entire practice, and Aden Durde seemed to agree. Take a listen to what he had to say after practice.
All those young guys were rolling today. I felt them. That's one of the best practices they all had, I thought, as a group. I really feel from all of them, Brian, is that they're starting to learn how to play together. It's hard, you think, when you come in as a front and you're coming into a group of players that have played together for like a year. Some of them have played longer. We just wasn't here before. So they know how to play off each other. And then you come in, there's real big personalities in the room. Now they're starting to, not getting comfortable, but they're starting to understand the expectations of that position and what's expected of them. You're seeing them all grow. It's kind of cool.
This group is being led by Jared Ivey. And look, this question was actually pitched about Ivey specifically, and it turned into talking about all these young guys. And for good reason, because that was one of the things that really stood out on my practice notes. Those of you that are at practices, that are in the berm, you may see me walking around with a big notebook. That's what I do. I take tons of notes, tons of details every single practice. And today I was combing through my notes and I just kept seeing undrafted rookie defensive lineman, undrafted rookie defensive lineman, just kept going down. But it all starts with number 51, Rob. We talked yesterday gushing about Jared Ivey's preseason debut, and seeing what he did today. He had 2 unofficial sacks, one on Drew Lock and one on Jalen Milroe, where thank goodness for the coaching staff, they didn't have to tell him stop hitting the quarterback because he didn't touch him. He stopped himself before he got to him. But really quick pass rushes, was able to get pressure. It's a padded practice. So guys are going full throttle up in the trenches, and he was winning. He was winning his battles in 2-on-2s. Instead of 1-on-1s, they had 2-on-2s today for their offensive line versus defensive line. And he had back-to-back reps where he absolutely dominated Sataoa Lamea. The first one beat him with a filthy swim move, and then the second rep came with the power and bulldozed Lamea back into the pocket. Had a couple other really impressive reps in stunts where he was able to win. I can't say enough about him. J.R. Singleton, the undrafted defensive tackle out of Iowa State, had some nice plays today, was getting chippy with guys on the field. I like the antagonizing nature of a couple of these guys, knowing that they're going after a roster spot. Edge rusher Jalen Gaines had a couple really nice pass rushes today. And so he seems like that blocked field goal is kind of giving him some confidence and some life. And Anthony Campbell, he took Bryce Cable to the 6th-round pick and knocked him on his duff, not once, but twice in 2-on-2s. So I just rattled off 4 names there. Those guys stood at the top of my top performers today, headlined, of course, by Jared Ivey.
Yeah, and that's great to hear because, as you said, especially with Jalen Gaines here, and we talked about it so much in yesterday's show, Corbin, about Jared Ivey, that they not only are performing very well during today's practice, but obviously they were, dominant at times during the preseason opener against the Las Vegas Raiders. And just all of these players are such different types of guys. I mean, Jared Ivey with his size, his positional flexibility, the fact that he was as productive as he was at Ole Miss, 9 sacks a year ago. I mean, so that just speaks for itself. We've talked about how we're kind of just, befuddled by the fact that Jared Ivey was not drafted, and he is proving that he should have been so far. For Hamilton, for Singleton, and certainly for Gaines, with Jalen Gaines blocking the field goal attempt, as acknowledge, for him to kind of continue to build off of that is very, very encouraging. The flashes I saw from Connor O'Toole, who I've talked about before, in the game itself, to me is, just lives up to all of the expectations that I and others had of him, just because, again, you do see the burst, you do see the bend. And so to me, the fact that not all of these players played the same position, you're talking about nose guard, you're talking about defensive tackle, you're talking about edge rushers. And again, with Ivey having the ability to play basically all of those positions as necessary. We've talked before, Corbin, about how John Schneider and his scouting staff deserve an awful lot of credit year in and year out for finding undrafted free agents. Don't be surprised if this winds up being one of the absolute bumper classes in John Schneider's tenure as general manager, because this undrafted free agent class really does look special.
And I think what makes this all the more interesting, we know the 11 draft picks, 9 of them were offensive players. Yep. And so the chance for defensive undrafted rookies to come in and be able to make a name for themselves, it was there because you didn't have a lot of draft picks on that side of the ball that were battling for spots. And you mentioned the positional versatility. Jared Ivey, one of the sacks that he had, and again, they're not bringing quarterbacks to the ground, but he was right there and they had to blow the whistle dead because he was going to roast Jalen Milroe on the play I'm thinking of. He got in there playing the 5-tech position in a 2-point stance. The second one, he was playing down in like a 2-eye. He was reduced inside. Like, that's the kind of stuff he can do. And I know he didn't test well athletically, but I don't see that on the field. I see a guy that has more than enough functional athleticism, and he's just got those bricks for hands. He knocks dudes back. I'm going to say this right now. If Jared Ivey is not on this team, I do not think that's a guy you're slipping to the practice squad. There will be teams that are going to want him because of his positional versatility and what he's putting on tape. To me, it's malpractice with the depth concerns that we had going in. If he's not one of the guys that's filling that void, because he just checks off what Mike Macdonald wants. He's extremely versatile and he's disruptive. He's physical and he's got kind of that agitator to him. And Seattle needs a few guys that are like that. Real quick, I want to talk a couple of the vets that, and I thought this was one of the more interesting things that Aden Durde had to say after practice today. Quentin Bohanna played for him in Dallas for a couple years. So those two already knew each other. Tyreke Smith did not know Durde, and he was drafted by the previous regime. Both these guys are in year 4. And as Durde said, guys mature differently. He feels like both those players, they are now at that stage where they're really maturing. Bohanna is down to 350 pounds. He was 365 end of last year. He just plays at a higher level at that weight. He's still a massive dude, so he's hard to move, but he's also got some quick twitch to him. And Tyreke Smith, as we'll learn later in the show, there's a lot of reasons why he's enjoying playing in this defense compared to Pete Carroll's defense previously as well. But both those guys in year 4, they've kind of been a little bit of a revelation here in this training camp, and it feels like both of them have spots on this roster for that reason.
No, I agree with you. Massive revelations in both cases. With Bohanna, I remember evaluating him coming out of Kentucky, and I just saw a guy that was just so big that his game was going to be a 2-gapping, run-stuffing, nose guard kind of a guy, but that was it. and he is showing more burst and a little bit more lateral agility to be more than that. And this is a team that needs a massive nose guard because we don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Hankins. And so for Bohanna to be, just playing much better football, more consistent football is very encouraging. Tyreke Smith, looked like, greased lightning off the edge against the Raiders. And so you've been at these training camp practices, day in and day out, Corbin. The fact that we are getting these positive reports, again, consistently with Tyreke Smith, not flashes, but consistently,
it's every day. It's every day. He had a couple nice rushes today. He's showing up every single practice.
Yeah, and that to me, again, is the most encouraging aspect of this. And so kudos to Tyreke Smith and Quinton Bohanna for doing that. Kudos to the Seahawks coaching staff. To me, one of the fascinating storylines out of Aden Durde's press conference, so I want to just kind of shift the attention here to one other storyline, was Josh Jobe. And the fact that, we've been kind of, or at least I very much been kind of, praising Josh Jobe, but it didn't sound like Aden Durde was quite as ready to just kind of anoint Josh Jobe as a number 3 cornerback. What were your thoughts, and what did you see in practice? Or do you disagree and feel that Jobe has locked in at number 3 spot?
I thought that was more of an example of coach speak, to be honest with you. Josh Jobe had 2 pass breakups again today. Like I'm not seeing anything that suggests to me like, ooh, like he's the number 3 guy by default because Griffin hasn't been there. Like he has played at a high level. So I know some fans are going to look into that, him just being very lukewarm and say, oh, that sounds like, to me, it just sounded like a lot of the answers he was talking about. There's competition at all these spots. And it was kind of that generic coach speak thing. But to me, it'd be a real surprise if Josh Jobe is not the 3rd corner when the season starts because he's played well. It's not like he hasn't had a good training camp. So yeah, I'm with you. That was kind of an interesting thing. It was kind of a Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend, type response. And yet I'm looking into, I know a couple other beat writers are like, man, that couldn't have been more of a lukewarm response on Jobe. But I didn't see nothing on the practice field that suggests to me that he hasn't earned that opportunity at that 3rd spot. And he's had a really good camp and he had a good practice again today. So I think sometimes you have to take these responses with a grain of salt, but there are ones like the one on Quinton Bohanna talking about the maturation and stuff that to me, those are the ones you really got to be looking at when you're looking at these press conferences after training camp practices. We've only talked defense so far, and there's plenty to talk about on the offensive side of the ball, including some comments from Clint Kubiak in his post-practice press conference. We are going to get to that coming up next here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back and better than ever. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, Rob and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or you're a veteran like me making your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years and love how smooth the draft day experience is. Our Locked On League's been running through Yahoo for a while now. Easy setup, great mobile app, and the smack talk just hits different in the message boards, especially when Rob and I have to rub it into Nick's face when he loses against us. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. To kick it off, they just dropped Guillotine Leagues on Yahoo Fantasy, a killer new way to play fantasy football where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's just one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new sudden death mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. That's your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks hosting their final open training camp practice to fans today at the VMAC, their 16th practice total. They'll be back in the field tomorrow. And they have a walkthrough on Thursday, gearing up for their second preseason game at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk some offense now, Rob. The entire last segment, all about the youngsters on defense, really exciting revelations on the defensive line, some guys that are fourth-year veterans starting to emerge. getting a sense of a competition, maybe still being there at corner. But there's a lot to talk about on the offensive side of the football. And I want to start first by putting a little bit of water on a fire, or at least on some brewing smoke when it comes to Ken Walker III. And look, I still have my questions about where he is at in terms of being able to stay healthy. I still have some questions whether the strategy the Seahawks are using, the plan that they are continuing to do, where they practice Walker for a day and then they don't for a day. Like, I'm wondering if that is really the right way to go about things, but you can't deny the fact that today, a padded practice, the first padded practice Ken Walker III participated in since the first padded practice they had in all of training camp, you can't deny the fact that he looked ready to play against the San Francisco 49ers. He had an explosive 25-yard run where I felt like he got those 25 yards when I just blinked. Just at rapid fire speed, the accelerator that he has that nobody else in this backfield brings the equation. And then he had a really nice play on a screen. And then after that, they kind of eased him out of practice. He's still in uniform, but look, we've seen enough. And it's just like Clint Kubiak summed up, like, hey, when he's been out there, like, we know he's flashed. The guy is ready to play. So you can have your concerns still about whether or not he can stay on the field. But as far as being ready for San Francisco, today confirmed to me that he's ready for that game.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, I think any questions about Ken Walker III's durability, I think it's very valid. But I also think that you have to acknowledge the young man's talent. And he just has an explosive burst to him, Corbin, that's very few running backs in all of the NFL possess. When he is on the field, the Seahawks offense is just infinitely more explosive and more likely to have a big play from the running game. And so it is encouraging to see Ken Walker III out there. The practices that I've gone to, he was on the field and he looked equally dynamic. So again, very excited about him and very excited about the success of running backs in Clint Kubiak's offense, obviously, and Gary Kubiak's offense before him as well. That to me was one of the big storylines. Another storyline that is actually not on our list, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of talked about it just for a moment here, was just how complimentary that Clint Kubiak was of Mike Macdonald. And I know that sounds like coach speak. And of course, the offensive coordinator is going to be complimentary. But again, this is a proven play call. This is a proven coach that his system works. And for him to say things like that, he's never been around a coach that is any better than Mike Macdonald when it comes to coaching up special situations and things like that. And just the preparation, the physicality that is required of Mike Macdonald's system. I think, again, when you think about Gary Kubiak, of course, Clint Kubiak's father and his success, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell this past, past years as well. Again, we're talking about some very successful head coaches. And for Clint Kubiak to be as complimentary of Mike Macdonald as he was, I think that there is not coach speak here. This rings true as far as a guy that is about to be a playoff contending kind of a coach.
And Clint Kubiak, look, whether you like it or not, like, he's very straightforward. He's simple, get to the point. This is not a guy that's going to rattle off. He's not Pete Carroll. He's the antithesis of Pete Carroll. He is going to answer your question, and then he's going to move on to the next one. That's just the way he does things. And you still can get some really good answers from him. You're just not going to be getting the long-winded ones, but you're going to get quality answers from him. And I thought it was interesting when he was asked about Anthony Bradford, and the thing that had stuck out to him, we have talked so much, the issue for Anthony Bradford his entire career to this point, and even Mike Macdonald said this the other day, the issue has been consistency. There have been moments where he looks like he's ready to take that next step and he can be a quality starter. And then you get 2 or 3 bad penalties, or you get a couple really bad pass pro reps, and then things kind of unravel. You have not had the consistency. And Clint Kubiak, literally, that was the first thing he mentioned with what he's noticed with Bradford, is he has been really impressed with the consistency that he has brought day in and day out. And it just seems like this kid, we talk about Aden Durde's comments about players maturing at different times. I'm wondering if this is the time where that's happening for Anthony Bradford, because he did show up in better shape to be able to play in this scheme. And whether fans want to hear it or not, like, this has been different than last year where he won by default. Like, I feel like he's winning that right guard job, and he has won it, in my opinion. He has won that job because he has been more consistent and he has played with physicality. He was out in front on that screen to Ken Walker III that I mentioned earlier. He was out in front, this big dude, and he was ready to mow down corners and safeties in 90-degree weather. Like, he has stepped up to the plate and he has taken this job. That's what he has done. And I thought that the comment, it wasn't a long answer, but the comment that Clint Kubiak made, it was kind of saying, look, the consistency is why he's where he's at. And that's why he's starting week 1. I'm not going to say might start. I'm saying he is starting week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers.
No, I agree with you. And look, I think that we've talked about this enough that our longtime listeners, and thank you as always, listeners and viewers, that you know that what we've talked about, that Anthony Bradford is in his the end of his rookie contract. He is looking to get paid. He recognizes that this is a unique opportunity. The same thing is the story with Tyreke Woolen, with Kenneth Walker, with Boye Mafe. I expect all 4 of those players to have fantastic seasons. And look, if you want to be critical of a player because they are going to be extra motivated about financial possibilities at the end of this season, I think you have to check yourself and look in the mirror.
And he's got 2 years, Rob. He's got 2 years left in his deal. He's in year 3. Yep.
Oh, I apologize then, but so I guess my point still would be that he is kind of seizing control of his future. And I do think that that he is one of those young players that at his best, he is just a different caliber of a player than say, Christian Haynes or Satoa Laumea. Look, solid players, NFL guys for sure. But are they Pro Bowl caliber kind of guys when they really are playing at their best? I think that Anthony Bradford is that, and I don't see that same type of upside with frankly, the rest of Seattle's interior offensive linemen, with the exception of the first-round pick, Gray Zabel.
Couple of other quick thoughts on offense stemming from the practice and the comments from Clint Kubiak. It's fascinating to me because up to this point, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I don't know that he had any first-team reps the last week and a half to 2 weeks. And then today, he got a ton of them, which could mean a couple of different things. And this is how the NFL works. This could very well be a case of, okay, we've seen what Torrey Horton can do. Now we're going to see where Marquez Valdes-Scantling fits. We're going to get him back in there some. It could also be a case where, all right, we're going to get you a lot of reps this week against Kansas City, and you might even get some reps in the preseason finale because, we're holding out hope maybe that you look really good and the team that needs a receiver might call us about you. And so you never know which avenue that it's going, but it feels like, Clint Kubiak said that he's at a great camp, but then he immediately said, but the competition, he's in a competition. They're making that very clear. Yeah, he's been great, but that continues to be the way that this is going. Mike Macdonald responded the same way. And the usage and the comments, to me, it kind of feels like they don't match up, but that's how you see with veterans like this that are being brought in who are not guaranteed to be on a roster. That's the way that I'm interpreting this and the way they're doing things. And it might very well be, let's get you a lot of reps out here so that you can maybe hitch a ride with somebody else after this. I'm really curious to see how this plays out with him.
Yeah, I think that is going to be one of the biggest storylines here. We've talked about this, on so many occasions about, just how much of a glut there is at the wide receiver position. There's just not that many spots available. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, if you look over his career historically, he has just been that vertical stretch down the field. We talked about this in the preseason, before the season even began in training camp, that when you look at the contested catches, that has not been his game at all. And yet that's what I thought was fascinating when Seattle lined up in the very first day of training camp. They actually had MVS playing slots where that's going to have to be the game. If he is unable to prove that he can play that type of a role, be more versatile than just that, streak down the sideline kind of a guy, then I think he has a chance of making this roster. If he does not, then I think that the younger talent, the guys that are going to be special on special teams, Tyreke Young getting kind of a shout out, Jake Bobo getting a shout out from Jay Harbaugh, Seattle special teams coordinator. That to me is one of the reasons why they might have the edge right now on Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
And I'm going to point this out, Rob. I think I mentioned yesterday, but he has not played a special team snap in a regular season game since 2021, and he only played 2 that year. The last NFL season that he had more than 25 reps on special teams was way back in 2018. And so we're talking his second year in the league. He has not been a special teams contributor really since then. He's had a couple snaps here and there in 2019 and 2021, but like that is not his game. And if you're going to be a fourth, fifth, or sixth receiver, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but like you got to be a special teams guy. So I feel, again, I think this is one of the most compelling things that we are going to be watching here the next week and a half or so to see where this goes, because in my opinion, Tyreke Young has been the better player in training camp. He offers you a great deal on special teams. And Harbaugh, as you said, pointed out, he was kind of one of those glue guys when asking which player personifies what you want at special teams. He mentioned Brady Russell first. Tyreke Young was the second name off his tongue. Jake Bobo was another guy that he quickly mentioned who was a really good special teams player. Like, those guys have more value than somebody that's just an offensive only player and the bottom of the depth chart. So I think this is still a very fascinating storyline that we are going to be watching with great attention here the next week and a half. When we come back, Tyreke Smith, just a couple of years ago, he was in Arizona. He got plucked off the practice squad. It looked like he was done in Seattle, and then ended up coming back to the Seahawks with a different coaching staff. And suddenly looks like he has found his groove entering the 2025 season. I had a chance to catch up with him. We'll have that interview coming up next here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, Mariners in first place, for example, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track all of my favorite baseball matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with the new daily promotions and fun ways to bet, especially during the dog days of baseball season as teams vie for playoff positioning. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. If I think Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to go deep for the Blue Jays against the Cubs, I can bet on it without a hitch. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right if your first bet wins, open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Only a few short years ago in 2022, Tyreke Smith was picked by the Seahawks as part of that heralded draft class. He was the second pass rusher they selected. Boye Mafe was selected on day 2, Rob, as you may remember. And then Tyreke Smith had a hip injury, missed his entire rookie season. He comes back the next year. He leads all edge rushers and run stops in the preseason, but the Seahawks cut him. He comes back in the practice squad. A few weeks later, Arizona claims him and puts him on their active roster. It seemed like at that point, we were done with Tyreke Smith in Seattle, but sure enough, comes full circle last year after the Cardinals cut him the end of training camp preseason, winds up back in Seattle with a totally different staff. I mean, Pete Carroll's staff's the one that drafted this kid, and he comes back to Seattle early in the season, head spinning a little bit, trying to learn a new defense, but he's on the practice squad, doesn't play any snaps in the regular season. But clearly, Rob, the Seahawks liked what they saw because they signed him back on a reserve future deal in January. And now here we are. Tyreke Smith was one of the most disruptive players in the preseason opener. He has been good pretty much every practice. You're seeing number 59 get after it. He's gotten some reps to the first team defense. He's been mostly in the second team, but he's played a lot of snaps. He's been very active, and he just had a great game. Run defense, pass rushing, you name it, got his hand on the football in that preseason opener. And it's been really fascinating seeing this former 5th-round pick out of Ohio State kind of rediscover his game a little bit with a different coaching staff than the one that drafted him in Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think it's just rediscover. I think that it's kind of been I'm not even sure the word. I mean, he has completely revolutionized his game. I never saw this kind of get off from him at any time in his earlier Seahawk time. I mean, his burst off the bat, I think he's more explosive. I think that he is anticipating the snap count better. I know that he is using his hands better. And as you talked about with his ability to play the run as well as the pass, I mean, that was kind of the knock on Tyreke Smith, and one of the reasons what led to him being a day 3 selection, for the Seahawks, despite playing at the Ohio State University and all that kind of stuff, is that he was kind of viewed as a little bit of a one-trick pony as far as the pass rusher. They would occasionally play the run, but he really has become one of the big storylines of this entire training camp for the Seahawks. And there are a lot of big storylines, but yeah, I think I'm excited to hear what Tyreke Smith has to say, because I think that he basically has had, kind of a revolutionary start. It's revolutionary in terms of his ability to be a full NFL kind of a starting caliber player rather than being just a guy on the back end of a roster, whether it be in Seattle, Arizona, or anywhere else.
I caught up with Tyreke before today's practice. He is an outstanding interview, always has a big smile on his face, and he can tell that he's having an absolute blast playing for Mike Macdonald and back with the Seahawks. Let's get to the interview. Take it away.
How surprised were you to end up back here? I know that had to be kind of a interesting journey going to Arizona, being in the heat there, and then coming back here.
It was definitely interesting, but when they called back and said they wanted me back, it was a blessing to just have that opportunity to come back.
What's changed? What's different? Obviously, the coaching staff's the most obvious thing, but coming back here and being with Coach Macdonald and this staff, and maybe some changes in terms of how things are done here. What's that been like for you?
I feel like just Mike came and put his flavor on it, like 12 is 1, and I just feel like what I feel most is the intent to win, the intent to get better every single day and maximize every moment we have here. I feel like that's like been the big thing. Just like, no matter, the adversity we hit or how you feeling, like just come in and try to get better and maximize every moment we can.
What did it mean to you for this team to come back and want to bring you back into the mix? After obviously they didn't let go of you, Arizona plucked you off the practice squad, but what did it mean to you, though, that there's a different coaching staff? Pete's not here, and this new coaching staff says, hey, we want to bring you on board.
It meant a lot. I felt like it brought confidence to me, and it just made me feel wanted, and just it felt like home coming back, because, I was drafted here, and then so a lot of the guys I was here and I got drafted with and in my class, they still here. So it just felt like a familiar face or familiar faces when I came back in the building, and so it wasn't hard to adapt to.
How's Tyreke Smith changed since you first were here? How do you feel as a player that you have evolved? I'm saying this just from somebody that coached for a long time out there. It just seems like maybe it is just the confidence, but it definitely looks like you feel much better about what you're doing in this defense than what you did early in your career here.
Yeah, I feel like, where they have me right now is just allowing me to play fast, play physical, play violent. I really don't once you get the plays and stuff down and you know your assignment, it just allows me to just really just get off the ball, play my best. And I also think that this past offseason was my first offseason I really got to train at my best and fullest, and I was actually fully healthy and I didn't have to worry about anything. So I got a good offseason in, got stronger, I feel like I got faster, and it just paid off for me for real.
Perfect segue to what I was going to ask you about next year, because obviously the first season missing with a hip injury and then bouncing around, being in Arizona for a while, then coming back here. But to be able to have that full off season when you kind of get thrown into the fire, learning Mike Macdonald's defense last year, just how important was that for you, being able to now come in for training camp feeling like I really know this defense inside and out, I know what they want out of me?
I feel like it was really important. Just to, I feel like it's just as in yourself to take that step as a pro, treat it, our bodies are our jobs, and that's what keeps us going. So I really try to treat this off season as take care of my body the best I could. I changed my eating, make sure I was eating a little more protein and stuff like that, trying to get more muscle on me, but also just attacking every workout, being intentional about every day I went out and put my best foot forward every day I went out and worked out. So I feel like it helped a lot for me. I feel better, I feel stronger, I feel faster, and then where I'm at playing in the defense, it's just allowing me to just be myself, play fast, play physical.
You mentioned all the guys that were here when you were here the first time, that you and Boye came in same time. But what has it been like now to have DeMarcus Lawrence joining that room, a veteran that has played so much football, so respected around the league?
I feel like it's just a lot of knowledge that he comes with. I feel like he has a input or a point about everything. You feel me? That if you have a question, if you have something on your mind that you think you need, or maybe a look that you got in the game or a look that you got in practice that you may need help on, you could definitely go to him and ask him any question, or he'll give you his 2 cents on what he sees versus what you may be seeing, because I know it's so much experience behind them. So it's just like any words he could give me, any teaching he gives me, any knowledge he drops on us, I'm like a sponge trying to soak it in.
You know, this will be your third healthy training camp or third healthy preseason that you've had. What are you hoping to accomplish here these last couple of games after knowing what you did the first 2 years that you got to play in preseason games? What's that next step like for you to truly show this coaching staff, I need to be on this football team, I need to be part of this rotation?
I feel like just stacking my days, not just in the preseason games, but in practice, is getting better every day, and just being consistent. That's a big thing. Consistent production. So I want to go out there next game, just be consistent, not get too high, not get too low, but do my job, and I know the plays will come through as I do my job and read my keys and work through.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to be starting to preview the game coming up on Friday. We'll have some takeaways coming out of the 17th practice for training camp as well. And we'll continue our roster bubble series, looking at 4 other positions where there's still some intriguing competitions going on as we head towards the end of the preseason. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and thanks for listening in. Go Hawks.